Absolutely. Culturally, we've all been colonized with a Western European way approach to life. And that's just so built into our society. Most people don't question anything because
Mm.
that's just the way we are. One thing I like to teach about is the 13 characteristics of white supremacy. And one of those is perfectionism. And so
Mm.
when we think about perfectionism, that's where a lot of self-hate comes in because we have this idea of Pinterest perfect or Instagram perfect and everything looks great and we don't question it. Instead, we internalize it. We're like, well, I don't look like that. My house
Right.
doesn't look like that. My family doesn't look like that. And then we internalize this like, well, we must not be good enough. And
Mm.
therefore, like, I hate this, whatever it is. And so that's just in our society all the time, culturally, that no one really thinks about.
Jackie Cope is an Indigenous educator, spiritual coach, and founder of RavenRabbit LLC, where she blends Indigenous knowledge, metaphysical practices, and modern self-help into transformative guidance. As a minister of metaphysics and Reiki practitioner, Jackie helps people reconnect to their authentic self, heal from within, and live in alignment with their soul's purpose.
Welcome, Jackie. How are you today?
Hello, I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Thank you for coming on. I'm excited to discuss the topic of self-hate, especially now when there's so much going on in the world where we're shedding old things and stepping into the new, right?
Definitely. Definitely topic of conversation.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so before we get into the questions and the discussion of the hour, I have an icebreaker question for you.
Okay.
All right, so what's something that has brought you joy recently, no matter how small?
Oh, that's such a good question. Right when you started saying this, started raining on the window, and mine, like, is always water. And I just
Mm.
love being around the water and in the water. So coming out of summer, it's just been nice and refreshing to be at the beach or in our spa or just in my bathroom. I love taking a shower. And then now
Yes,
it's raining, so we're coming into that, and I just love it.
awesome. I love the water too. For some reason, I love like the beach. I've always been drawn to it for some reason, but
Yeah.
good answer. I like that. It does bring me joy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the questions. Now, when we did our pre-interview, you mentioned a lot about self-hate and you help people or maybe women heal from that self-hate. Now, when we talk about self-hate, what are we actually talking about? What does that look like in our daily lives?
Yeah, so I think it's something that many of us miss and we've never even really been taught about. It's not something that fell on my radar until like a few months ago, almost a year. And once I finally heard the word self-hate and understanding what it meant, I was like, this is everything I've been dealing with that I had no idea. So when we're talking about self-hate, we're really talking about the language that we use in our internal dialogue for ourselves. Like, what are we saying to ourselves? Are we saying, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm dumb, I can't get this right, I'm ugly, I'm fat, like all of these things we're saying to ourselves, that's the language we use. And a lot of them root into self-hate. And it's also how we treat ourselves too. So that can be like by the habits we have, whether around exercise, diet, overworking, burnout, all of those habits that we have also reflect our self-love or lack thereof self-love.
Right. Yeah, I find that interesting because when it comes to self-hate, like you said, it's so subtle. Because everyone when you look around the world and you look around you, people are always putting themselves down. It's like almost the in thing to do to not make you
Mhm.
look like you're better than anyone or else or things like that. How can someone kind of break that, like distinguish not speaking negative things about yourself, but also remaining in a place where you're not, puffing yourself up in pride, I should say.
Yeah, when you say that question, it really makes me think about ego.
Mm.
So it can depends on where our ego's at. If we're in a place of like, I'm so great and I'm so wonderful, and we're very egotistical with it, that's just coming from that space that feels yucky and not good. But if we're
Right.
coming from a place of like love and confidence, like I'm really good at this. This is my talent. This is my gift. This is what I'm here to do. that's coming from a different place. That's got spiritual connection to it and like our love and our higher self connected to it as well.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you for answering that.
of
So,
course.
in your experience, are there cultural or spiritual layers to self-hate that most people don't consider?
Absolutely. Culturally, we've all been colonized with a Western European way approach to life. And that's just so built into our society. Most people don't question anything because
Mm,
that's just the way we are. One thing I like to teach about is the 13 characteristics of white supremacy. And one of those is perfectionism. And so
mm,
when we think about perfectionism, that's where a lot of self-hate comes in because we have this idea of Pinterest perfect or Instagram perfect and everything looks great and we don't question it. Instead, we internalize it. We're like, well, I don't look like that. My house
right.
doesn't look like that. My family doesn't look like that. And then we internalize this like, well, we must not be good enough. And therefore,
Mm,
like, I hate this, whatever it is. And so that's just in our society all the time culturally that no one really thinks about. Um, I think indigenously, like we've drastically shifted our ways from indigenous ways of being because of colonization. Our connection to earth is not what it used to be for like the whole, like some people are connected, of course, but on the whole, when we look at society, that connection's been very severed. So spiritually, we've been stripped away from a lot of our spiritual practices as
right.
indigenous beings.
Right. You
Yeah.
mentioned the perfectionism. That's so interesting. You said how many laws was it? 13?
There's 13,
13 laws. Interesting. Huh.
13 white supremacy characteristics.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so perfectionism is number one or number
It's
13?
just one of them. Yeah.
Okay.
One
Okay.
that I always get very stuck on because you wouldn't think of that as a white supremacist thing, but it's
Mm,
that white picket fence, that perfect career, the perfect family. Like we're all striving for this idealistic thing that has been defined as perfect when it's not.
right, right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that comparison of just looking at everyone else and thinking, oh, I'm not here yet, or I will never get there.
Hmm.
Social media right now is it's not the healthiest.
No, it's not.
It's not, but it's crazy that you mentioned that. I've never heard of that, of these laws, first and foremost. Like, is this something that you found or something that you created?
The white supremacy characteristics are something I came across as a teacher. I was very involved with the California Teachers Association. I was a human rights trainer, and this was an article that they had us read and think about and say, like, here's these characteristics. What do you guys think? How do you see it in the classroom coming through? And it's like perfectionism all the way when you think about a teacher,
Right.
the perfect class. We just had this huge thing on TikTok. I don't know if you saw it, where the mom was crying because the kindergarten class wasn't cute enough for her son. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I did
Oh
not.
my goodness, all the teachers, come out to defend. Like, are you serious, lady? Like, what the teachers put into stuff is you wouldn't even imagine how much they spend. But like,
Right.
I got really caught on that perfectionism because it affects, that's where I heard of it, was through my teaching and through my rights of human rights work. And I've taken those 13 um characteristics and I've developed a course around them too in my website called Transformative Spaces of like how is that just showing up in general through our education system and in our
Right.
lives because there's many of them that do.
Right. And it's really just a false expectation because everyone's life is different.
Yeah.
Everyone has, a different role to play, and it's not just one cookie cutter way. And
Mm.
that's insane. I've never heard of that. And I'm going to actually look that up. I'm very, very intrigued by that
Oh, good.
law.
I'll have to send you more information on that.
Yes, please do.
Good read. Mm.
So, okay, so how did you first recognize self-hate in your own life? And what sparked you to start teaching others about it, if you don't mind sharing?
Of course. My whole life I was leaned more towards the depressive side. And I thought throughout my life I was battling with depression. My grandma on the native side, she had it, and it was a very common thing to be dealing with. However, a few months ago, like a year ago, I heard Dr. Blaise Agar speak on Armchair Expert, Dak Shepard's podcast, and his research was in why teens were suicidal. He's like a Harvard professor or something. And he started narrowing it down. All these interviews he would do with these kids was it all came back to self-hate. And he's like, well, that must be the root cause. And let me do some research about self-hate. So he says he goes to his computer, looks up self-hate, and he found 11 articles about it. And like,
Mm.
that's nothing in academic world. Like 11 articles means it's not been researched at all. So then it triggered his research into we've got to learn more about this if all the teens are dealing with this. And just listening to him talk about it was like that is what I have tackled my whole life and never had the words for. So he had in his book about 7 different types of self-hate in there. And they start with self-hate first, like, oh, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, I hate myself. And then they just like branch out into all of these things like self-disgust. So you might be thinking that's where your body dysmorphia comes from, like you're disgusted with your nose or your hips or whatever it is. And it can go into self-invalidation. So that's where we get into like gaslighting. You imagine the situation happened, but then you're told otherwise and you imagine this other thing. So then you're constantly self-invalidating yourself. And that can go 2 ways to like, oh, that incident didn't happen, or it can be like getting yourself out of those feelings. I overreacted. I was wrong
Mm.
to be hurt. And so you're not like validating your real experience. And so once I heard him talk about all these different types of self-hate, I was like, these are the things that I've always struggled with. And when I had my psychologist, she taught me about ruminating. And because I would tell her at night, like, I would just go through it over and over again.
Mm.
I got to the point where I could articulate to her that it came back down to me being so mad at myself. That's where the rumination would always go back to. Hating myself, being mad at myself for not knowing, and all of those issues that went with it. And I wanted to start teaching others about this because you hear those comments all the time. Like when you're watching any social media or anything, you hear like, I'm not the prettiest girl there ever was, or I know I'm not that great. Like those thoughts are constantly always around and we just accept them as okay. And now I see them as like, we shouldn't be saying those things about ourselves.
Right, right. I mean, and even in the simplest way, like you stated, like, because I'm on a weight loss journey, right? And
Hmm.
we know it's a process. It's a
Oh
long
yeah, it is. I'm
process.
there too, definitely.
And at times I just, sometimes I'm so harsh on myself. I'm like, oh, I hate the way this looks, and I hate my arms, and I hate this. And I'm just like, lately, I'm like, okay, let's start showing love to these parts, right? Let's start showing compassion to these arms that have a little extra meat and start saying, like, my arms, have helped me to survive in these
Yeah.
my past couple of months, so thank you. And kind of changing the narrative when it comes to how I look at myself in the mirror. I don't think that I'm like I don't feel disgusted, but I do want the process to hurry up. Like, I'm just gonna be honest.
Oh, yes, definitely. I struggled with my weight my whole life. So I
So how can
understand.
someone, I'm sorry, how can someone because I know everything is energy, what does that do energetically when someone says, oh, I don't like this about myself, or they, nonchalantly or jokingly put themselves down? What does that do energetically?
So that gets into the law of as within, so without. And so within that law, like you're saying these things to yourself. I'll just use your example since she's here. Like, I hate my arms.
Mhm.
Mom has that one too, because she's a bigger girl. I hate my arms. You're gonna see out on your outside more and more things that are gonna affirm that for you. So for my mom, like summer, tank tops, dresses, she's gonna have like my arms are showing. Why doesn't this outfit have sleeves? Like so she's constantly seeing it. So then when she takes a photo and she turns to the side, it's like the world's constantly gonna keep showing that to her because that's what she keeps seeing.
Mhm.
And so within as without, or you get what I'm saying?
Right,
Get a
right,
little
right.
tongue-tied now. But that's what it does energetically. You're putting that out into the field and the universe doesn't hear anything different. They're just like, "Oh, she thinks her arms are fat. Let me like affirm that for her." So then it's going to be like, let's get this terrible shirt when she's in the dressing room and show her how terrible she thinks her arms are. Instead of going to more of that, when you were talking, to shift that would be having body neutrality and
Right,
like appreciation for a functioning body.
right,
When
right.
you said all the things your arms did, like opening the computer, typing, it like driving, like it does so much for you. Like you can be so thankful for the functionality of your body and have more of a
Right.
neutral stance with it as well. And
Mm.
then be asking the universe to like show me ways that I could love my arms. Show me like bring me the best tops ever to show off my arms. So we can start putting that stuff out and the universe is gonna go, oh, she wants the best top. Instead of being like, oh, she thinks her arms are bad. Let's go with that.
Right.
So that's what it does
Okay.
energetically. It's all about what we're attracting to ourselves.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for answering that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you blend indigenous. I can't, for some reason, pronouncing this word is hard for me. Indigenous knowledge. You blend indigenous knowledge, metaphysics, and modern self-help. How do these approaches come together to help someone shift from self-hate into self-love?
At the end of the day, I think it comes down to decolonizing because we have to start letting go of the white Western ways of being and adopting the ones that are working for us. So and everyone's is different. For me, it's my native ways of being. I'm Washoe. So like looking back at what the Washoe beliefs are and how traditional or story might tell me how to deal with a situation or something that's happening. And so I know for all people, they might not know their culture or understand where to go. But there's still ways you could look back in your family with a healthy person or through meditation with healthy ancestors, start trying to figure out what that is and where the
Mhm.
love can come through because not all of our ancestors are healed ancestors either. They've
Right.
gone through a lot of trauma. So they might not always be the best to pair with and work with. And as we embrace our and for me, indigenous ways of being and those metaphysical practices, that's self-love in itself. And it's also a form of self-expression.
Okay. Okay. Can
Um,
you talk more about the decolonization? Can you give me another like law within that paperwork? Because you keep bringing it up. So I know this is the center of your work, and I want our listeners to kind of get, I don't know, I
Mhm.
want to go a little bit more in depth with that.
Okay, so there's 13 white supremacy characteristics that come up. And I've talked about perfectionism a lot because that's one as women and teachers and service, people of service, like we deal with a lot. Um,
Hmm.
Another one we deal with a lot, for an example, is the quantity over quality. This is always running through American issues. Like we think that having more is better. The quantity is higher, the more money, the more goods,
Right.
the more luxury things that we have. Like we spend so much time in this quantity mindset and that we forget about the quality of things, whether
Right.
family quality. If you're going out to make a bunch of money and you're working constantly, well, your time is spent there that you only have so many minutes. What about the other minutes? What is that quality of time you're spending at a job versus with your family? And gosh, one that popped in my head too right now with the weight thing is like we quantity of like the scale. Like we're always
Mm.
looking at that. But what about the quality of life? If we're worried
Mm.
about this, what about the quality of life side of enjoying ourselves? Because I've been there too, where it's like I have to work out every day. I used to wake up at 5 a.m., work out, counting my calories, like everything was quantity, measuring my body, my weight, waking up early, calorie intake. So
Right.
quantifying on that journey where
Yeah.
finally like when am I going to stop quantifying everything and just like live life? And
Right.
I'm doing that to myself. And I've been athletic most of my life, playing basketball. My early 20s, I did CrossFit. I became a yoga instructor, and then I had brain surgery at 34. And like all of that, like I'm I just have a functioning body and like that's something to be appreciative of. And now finally like a year and a half out, I'm like, okay, we need to start getting back into yoga. We need to start walking every night. These are things my husband and I have talked about, but like it's more of that quality now. Like I enjoy yoga for the fact that my body can do that. And it
Mm.
got to like after having that surgery, it's like we don't know what's going to work. We don't know how it's going to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that that surgery and, everything else played a major role in like, or maybe tried to come back with the self-hate and really, start to create a new narrative for you. and you just
Definitely.
go against that. Well, it's amazing. And another thing another thing that I'm finding is very interesting is just the programming of the white supremacy that we don't see, but it's there.
Yeah. And there's another one I want to talk about that we don't see that maybe we do, and it's individualism. So, like, we're so focused on the individual all the time. We are very egocentric. Everything is about us. And it
Mm.
happens when we're little all the way through when we start talking about participation trophies and everything's just about me, 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 me. And everything's individualized. And I think about just our fast food industry, like, have it your way, like, all of those things. Like, it's all about you and your likes, and we don't always think about the collective. Thinking about the collective is decolonizing. That's going back to collective issues. I live 2 miles away from my mom, and my dad played a big role in raising my first son. Like, we're more about the collective of being together as a family versus being so separate.
Right.
And separating it goes back to a colonizing way of divide and conquer. If we separate all of these people, they can't be one together, just like we did with our tribal people. We separate the tribe, they fight amongst themselves, they're not together. We can go in and then take over. And so
Right.
it's happening within our society every day. We're all in our own little apartment, our own little box, and we don't intermingle.
And that's a touchy topic for me because even
Yeah.
with today's events that have been occurring, that I don't like to get into the whole political things of, aspects of things, but it's real and it's happening in our world where they are still trying to separate us and
Yes.
create this programming or enforce this programming that has been given from, I mean, centuries now, decades.
Yeah.
Um, and we just don't see it. And it's again, it's like you said, well, if that's not affecting me, then what does it matter? But in
Mhm.
reality, it does.
Yeah.
It does. And remaining neutral throughout the situation is, to me, honestly, has been challenging because I'm very, like, I can feel when things are wrong. Like, even looking at the news, I don't like to look at the news. And
Me
this is
neither.
weird that it's going into that direction, but I try to avoid it because I know that when I see it, it hits me like a ton of bricks. Like I am
You're
like
empathetic.
weeping. I am in tears and I'm just no good for anything or anyone for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And it's because I don't see race, I don't see color, I see humanity. I see people and I see the program. And it's just like,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll move on. We'll move on.
That's because you're empathetic, though, and that comes into having lots of people don't know that they're so empathetic like that, and then that's a gift. And it's a spiritual gift to be able to tune into that. It's a matter of honing it so that hopefully you're not out for a few hours and you can use it for good.
Right, right. And I'm definitely learning that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Whew. Okay, that got a little heavy.
That's okay. A lot of my stuff does.
Whew. Okay, so how do we differentiate between healthy self-reflection and harmful self-criticism? Because I'm sure there's a very thin line for those two.
Yes, and this is like a very tough question, I think, because it is such a fine line. We have to um practice healthy self-reflection, and that really is not taught.
Right.
I don't think it's really taught at all. We have to learn to separate our emotion of ourselves and like of our work and be able to evaluate it in a positive, healthy way. And that's to evaluate, not to tear down and to criticize, because one thing that comes back, I used to say, and I've heard being said, is like, I'm my own worst critic. Like, you've already read it, and I've already thought of all the 20 things you could have said that were terrible about it. But really, that's just like a high defense mechanism because if I can say the worst thing, no one else can. No one else
Mm.
has that right to do that to me. And it's really just a really strong wall we put up. But instead, we have to have that healthy reflection. So the example I could think of here was for me as a writer. So lots of us have been in school and wrote too. Like when you write a paper that you're passionate about, for me, I write books, you get deeply connected to it. And it's like a part of me. And that paper's everything. And I have to learn to release and let go. So typically I'll sleep. Like, okay, let me sleep on that. and then I can come back and revise and look at it and then make my adjustments and then let it go out into the world. And that's a more positive way and a healthy way of doing it. I'm not tearing it down. I'm not saying I'm a terrible writer. I shouldn't be writing this. That's more of that self-criticism side where we can go into that downward spiral into self-hate. You start saying, who am I to write this? This is the worst piece of garbage ever. I don't know how grammar works. I'm all
Mm-hmm.
wrong. I make a ton of mistakes anyways. I hate myself. Why did I even bother trying? Close the computer, give up. That's
Right.
self-criticism.
Okay.
That's where we're getting that really deep self-hate that's just so terrible. And then again, energetically, like you brought up, that's out in the universe. You just said that paper is terrible. Where's it gonna go?
Mhm.
Nowhere, because you've already put over it that it's awful.
Right.
Hmm.
So how does one, can you give another example? Because you said you'll sleep on it just to kind of look at it again. What else can someone do to kind of retract, deter themselves from the self-criticism, which is harmful, into actual healthy self-reflection? What are some tips or techniques that they can begin to, shift gears?
Yes. It's easy to do with the writing because you can close it and put it away, but sometimes those things happen to us like on the spot, like walking
Mhm.
past a mirror. Um, Having a poor interaction with somebody on the street. Like those things can happen in the moment. So for me, being able to name the emotion. So before I really dealt with it, I would spiral and be in a negative headspace for hours, days, weeks. And that's why I really always thought it was depression because I could go weeks with like being in the slump of like going through a bout of depression. But it's because I didn't know how to handle the self hate that was going on from the one incident. So now, like when incidents happen, for me, I like to journal. I will journal about them. So that's not always like a quick in the moment when you're in the moment and you're heated and you're upset. But sometimes I'll think, I got to write this in the journal and at least that'll kind of pull me out, like, because I got to think of something I need to do later. I have
Right.
lots of different journals and I'll be like, this needs to go in my spiritual journal because who knows what this will mean down the line. This might have meaning to it. Like, why is this triggering me? This could be a different part of my spiritual journey that I'm supposed to learn about.
Right.
Sometimes that pulls me out. And so just last week, I travel for education consulting and I take my travel trailer with me and it broke down. Like the trailer snapped and the trailer was on the tires and it was very scary. Thankfully, I was in a parking lot. And I know my old way of doing things would be coming outside of the car, cussing, yelling, what am I gonna do? Why does this happen to me? Like those types of things. But when I got out of the car, first thing on my mind was, thank God I was in a parking lot going under 5 miles an hour and not 60 miles an hour on the highway.
Right.
And so like just knowing like now that I've done all of this work, I can get out of the car calmly, figure things out, and just do things from a much more healed, aligned place as opposed to before, where it was very quick to anger. And
Right.
I just kept one affirmation I've been saying a lot is show me how fun and easy this can be. So after the trailer broke down, it's like, show me how fun and easy this can
I
be.
like that.
And it really actually worked out very well. I broke down like at 7:30 in the morning, very early, and made calls to the school, got in touch. I was thinking, oh, USAA, go through your typical get towed. How am I going to get this trailer all the way to California where I live? And then I was like, no, I just want somebody from the reservation out here because I go to the Navajo Nation to just like fix it, take it to their house and fix it. And phone calls got made, and the guy was there by 11 o'clock, ready to take it home and fix it. And I was like, this is wonderful. That was an easier way. So, in thinking about things like that, being able to label it, for me, it's anger. It might be anything. It could be sadness. Lots of people go to anger. Whatever it
Right.
might be able to label it. Think about, okay, I got to write this in my journal later. And then an affirmation. Show me how easy and fun this can be, even when it's feels like it's the end of the world and you're
I
stranded.
really like that. I like that idea. I really do. I'm gonna use that one.
Yes, please.
You talked about healing and alignment. So for me, I was in a very religious, well, we claimed that we weren't religious, but in reality, there was a lot of religious programming. Um,
Mhm.
so there was a lot of like condemnation and things like that. So whenever I would mess up or,
Mm,
or if I reacted in a certain way, then I was condemned, I condemned myself. And when I began to detach from religion and detach from like systems that create such self-condemnation, right? It was
Mhm.
almost like a reprogramming for me because I had to understand that I'm going to be angry and it's okay to be angry, right?
Yes.
As
Yeah.
opposed to if you're angry, then you need to go do, get delivered, you need to go to prayer and do all these things.
Hmm.
Now I'm not condemning myself. I used to literally lock myself in a room for like in a hotel room for days because I wanted God to deliver me and just get rid of all the ugly within me, all the
Hmm.
darkness. Now I'm sitting with it differently. I'm not saying, oh my God, get rid of this. I'm actually saying, okay, having compassion first and foremost. And like you
Hmm.
said, looking at it objectively, really observing and not beating myself up, but really just saying what's going on, why am I feeling this way? Is there something that I need to work on? And not in a place like, oh my God, we have to get this done or else I'm
Yeah.
just not good enough type of thing. But what's going on? Like really speaking to myself in a different tone, in a different manner. And so I say that to say because I want to know what does that look like when you are in the healing process and you're looking for your soul's purpose? What does
Hmm.
alignment look like when we're healing from self-hate?
Yes. You said so many great things. Thank you for that. Living in alignment looks like things flowing. And so that's why I brought up the trailer incident that happened to me last week because that was a flowing incident. I was like, okay, I've been doing all of this work and look how much different I approached that versus how old me would have approached that. Things
Mhm.
will just flow. Or sometimes you get bad news you don't want to hear, things getting in the way. Even before that trip, the truck wouldn't start. It's a brand new truck. It's like, okay, so then we have to figure out what are we going to do? So things start to flow. So even though you might be tired, you might be angry, answers come and you can stay calm around it. So yeah, I say angry because it's like, oh, I'm so mad the truck's broken, but I'm not going to let it, like you said,
Right.
you want to lock yourself in a room for days. Like that's how it used to be. Like, don't talk to me. Don't nothing. Like I'm so angry. Um, because the hard times are still going to come. But
Right.
I feel like when you're in alignment, solutions appear and
Mhm.
you can see them because solutions are always there. It's whether our higher self is going to catch on to them or not because the universe is always talking to us. Our spirit team's always talking to us. In alignment, you're going to see those things and you're not
Um,
trapped anymore. And so when you're healing from self-hate, it's easy to go back into the spiral. And so when you're living in alignment, it might be the issue happens and you get into that self-hate a little bit, but then you could take a step back and be like, oh, wait, I see this happening again. I'm catching myself. So now you can catch it and name it. So that's also living in alignment versus just totally spiraling out of control and blaming the situation, rather yourself. Like, okay, what is it that I need to learn from this?
right.
What am I supposed to take away? Like, this is the universe is bringing this up because there's something here I'm supposed to get out of it. And what is that? And then you brought up something too when you talked about time that was like in my head. You said rushing to get it done. Time is another thing with colonization that we go back to. Sense of urgency is another characteristic of white supremacy. Yeah, I remembered one without looking at the paper. But that sense of urgency, it's like you have to get it done. It should have been done yesterday. Like I should have already foreseen that this issue was going to happen,
Mhm.
and I should have already solved it so the issue didn't happen. And we start playing this crazy game, which ties into a little bit of the perfectionism because you should have avoided all bumps and problems. But we
Right.
get into this urgency, and then look at the mistakes we start to make in that sense of urgency. You start doing things you probably shouldn't have done, or say that's really one, saying things we shouldn't have said because you're in the heat of the moment and you're just spewing it out. And it's like you didn't slow down, you didn't reflect, you didn't think, and you just did.
Right.
And so when we're in alignment, I think too, we start rejecting that sense of urgency.
Mm. Good. I love that. I love you said flow and solutions. The solutions really got me because that's a good one to look out for our listeners and even for myself to see when things are happening. the solution should come because it just makes sense. You're in
Yeah.
the perfect time in the perfect place. That means there are solutions around you. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that because that helped me to
Mhm.
see things and to look out for those things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So if you could give listeners, if you could give our listeners one guiding principle to start loving themselves more fully, what would it be?
This is one that I always start my course with this affirmation. And it's really simple. And the affirmation is I allow new self-talk to enter my field. Because typically when you're coming into this space like with so much hate, so much anger, you'll get to these coaches or stuff, they'll be like, just say you love yourself. I love me. And it's like you're not even ready for any
Mm,
of that. That's like too much. It's so foreign. Like when I was first on this journey of trying to find love for myself, I bought this sweater that said love myself because I'm like, okay, maybe if I wear it, I'll start embodying it. And at least it's there and I'll think about it. But like typically I'd listen to these ladies online and be like, there's no way I could say I love myself right away. There was no way it was happening.
right,
So I allow new self-talk to enter my field. So as within, so without. If you're going to be willing to hear it now, this is going to bring it back to you. And then your job is to listen to it, whatever that might be. And those are baby steps, but I think those baby steps are really big wins, and those big wins mean everything. Like just the little things are so important.
right. And what I see when we're saying that is like we're creating an environment, we're creating a cultivation for walls to come down, right? For
Yes.
new things to start coming in. So new, like you said, you're making room for it. And
Yes.
so I love that. I really love that idea because it's like you said, people think that it's just going to happen overnight. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. But if
Mm-mm.
we continue to say this day after day, we're creating, like, we're cultivating a ground for just good things to come in, for new language, new narrative
Mm-hmm.
begin to happen. So that's
Yeah.
amazing. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. I like it too. I still use it because even though I've done this process and I've taught it, I can still have new self-talk enter my field. I'm still entering and going into new things that are like I'm not sure about.
Right,
Maybe I
right,
can hear that confidence and hear what the universe needs to say to me about self-love.
right. It makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Jackie. This has truly been very great and very interesting.
Good.
Tell our listeners how can they find you and connect with you and learn more about what your coaching program is about.
Everything is under my business name, RavenRabbit LLC. So you'll find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I have a podcast as well, and it's called Raven Rabbit Wellness Studio Podcast, where we talk about all these types of topics that are spiritual. And I also have a teacher podcast called Hey Teacher as well, if the teachers want to get in and listen, because I talk about decolonization there as well. And my website is the best place to get connected with me, and the email subscription there so you can keep up with everything that's happening.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm definitely going to tune into the podcast as well.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I'll be sure to put everything into the description so our listeners can connect with you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.